Okay, ethics. Um, my understanding from the ILIF curriculum is that at some point you will need to take at least one, if not two, courses in ethics at ILIF. And I don't know whether or not any of you have done that already. Um, and that's just my understanding from talking with one of the ILIF students. And so I can't make any assumptions where you are in the grand scheme of ethical thinking. And so I'm just going to assume that you will at some point take a class. I would certainly um, suggest that if it's not an absolute requirement, you do it, because again, this is one of those areas where ministry hits the road. That rubber of ministry hits the road. It's also, of course, an area in which those of you who would take the GOEs will be examined. So it's clearly an important part of what we do and an important part of who we are. So, like I say, I can't assume that you have done that. You will need, at some point, we'll introduce a little bit of this in this section. You will need to do some thinking about Anglican ethics. We'll talk again about that in a little bit, about how that's different. But at the beginning, I just want to talk about ethics as a whole, just to provide some context. Ethics deals with questions as to what is right, or what is good, or how we ought to behave. We think about those in a lot of different ways. Those are the primary ways that we think about it. There are also questions as, are these answers that we've given, are they to how we behave, or what is right, or what is good, are those ethical? I think, for example, of the miniseries The Sopranos. Within The Sopranos, the world of Tony Soprano, there were a certain set of ethics about how that world worked, the internal workings of that world. And they would say, yes, doing this is right, this is right, this is good, this is good. But we can ask questions about those from outside, because we might have a different set of ethics. What they would consider as good for the sustaining of their community, we might see from outside that community as unethical. That lying in one context might be ethical in that community, but lying from the outside might not be seen as quite ethical. And then a third way is, what makes these things good or right or ethical? The question of the source of the authority that decides that lying is wrong, killing is wrong, adultery is wrong or unethical. What provides the rationale for making those decisions? These are all part of what ethics is. That sense of trying to decide, trying to discern what's right, what's good, how we ought to behave, how we ought to live to maintain the community that we're a part of. So that's one piece. The other piece that I want to talk about here in this section is also ethos. They come from the same root word, ethics, ethos. But ethos is a little different. It corresponds to something that's more like customs or mores, the Latin word mores. Generally held moral beliefs and customs. And we coexist in a lot of different contexts. I am a cyclist. I am a fisherman. I am a bird watcher. I am a priest. I work for the University of Denver. I have responsibility as a parent and as a husband. And all of those have different ethos associated with them. My ethos, part of the ethos of being a parent is that I have to do certain things with my children that I wouldn't do, or I wouldn't say, or I wouldn't assert if I was meeting with somebody in a pastoral care situation. The ethos is different. The levels of authority are different. And so sometimes those might come into conflict. A sports person's ethos of competition and winning at any cost might come into conflict with an overall sort of, let's say, a Christian ethos of compassion and cooperation and all those kinds of things. It's not necessarily a bad conflict, but those can come into conflict with one another. So an ethic, on the one hand, sort of aims at a consistent or unified moral system. Um, but so consistent and unified. But we may have impinging on us at any particular time several different ethoses that are coming into conflict. Those might be, for example, different dreams that we have to work out as we strive to find an ethical course. So there are contradictory expectations. So all of those pieces sort of knit together as we consider how should we live in a complex world. And our world, of course, is increasingly complex, more global, more interreligious, intercultural, interpolitical, all of those kinds of things. How do we chart an ethical line when the expectations, the needs, the demands are so different? That's the task that we bring here to this ethical enterprise. I want to talk next, and I'll shift out of this one and go into another one, about a schema that I found really helpful. It's not really a theological ethical schema. It comes out of biomedical ethics, but I found it useful in a couple of different places to try and help make sense out of an issue and maybe help categorize ways of response that, like I say, I found helpful in a couple of different places. And then we'll turn to the question of theological ethics and Anglican ethics in particular in a few minutes.